Hey guys, today we're gonna be making a new world and gathering resources to build our home while checking out some of the craziest AITI stories Reddit has to offer. If you don't know what AITI stands for, it's MID as whole. People post their real life situations and it's up to us to decide who's actually in the wrong. So let's jump into the first story. Am I the asshole for not paying for my daughter's wedding when I have the funds to do so? Okay, sounds interesting, so let's read the whole story. My spouse and I have worked hard our whole lives, and we are now in a very comfortable financial position. We could retire tomorrow if we wanted to, but we both enjoy working and planning to continue. We have three children, and we paid for all of their college educations so they graduated debt free. We didn't put any stipulations on what they could study. Looking back, maybe we should have. Two of our children have very solid careers, while one does not. This is about my daughter, who I'll call Maria. Okay. Maria earned a degree that doesn't translate well into a high paying career. She later went back to get a master's degree, but that didn't improve her earning potential either. She's struggling financially, and there has been a talk of her going back to school again for a nursing degree, although that would be a difficult situation. My spouse and I believe that if you're mature enough to get married, you're mature enough to pay for your own wedding. Our oldest child got married last year and paid for the wedding themselves. It was a lovely wedding. Our second child is getting married next month, and they all also are paying for their own wedding, which will be fairly expensive. Uh, Maria recently got engaged, but she and her fiance don't have money to have a wedding like her siblings did. She asked us if we could pay for it. I told her no and said they should have the wedding that she and her future husband can afford. She was upset because she knows we have more than enough money to give her a fancy wedding like her siblings had. She thinks it's unfair that she can have her dream wedding simply because she earns less than they do. I told her that's how just life works. You pay for what you can afford. We don't believe it's our responsibility to pay for an adult child's wedding. She thinks I'm being unfair and rubbing our money in her face by refusing to help. Okay, that's one of a story. So, after reading the comments, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I actually agree with the majority that you're not the asshole for not paying for the wedding. Your other two kids paid for their own weddings, so changing the rules now just because Maria earns less wouldn't really be fair to them. Wedding a dream wedding doesn't automatically mean someone else has to pay for it. That said, I also couldn't ignore something a lot people pointed out. The way you talk about Maria feels supply. That said, I also couldn't ignore something a lot people pointed out. The way you talk about Maria feels surprisingly harsh. Instead of just saying she chose a lower paying career, you spend a lot of time talking about how she picked up the wrong degree and how maybe you should control what she studied. It almost sounds like you're disappointed in who she became rather than simply explaining why it didn't fund the wedding. So I don't think you're in the wrong for saying no. I just think your attitude toward your daughter came across as pretty judgmental. If this post has simply been like, we didn't pay for any of our kids' weddings, so we're not paying for hers either, I don't think many people would have had an issue with that. The wedding decision? Fair enough. The way you speak about your daughter? That's the part that left a bad taste in my mouth.
Am I the asshole for telling my son he is the reason why we had to leave his aunt's house?
I have two kids, 6-year-old female and 10-year-old male. Things happened, and the kids and I needed a place to stay until I could get on my feet. A friend that I haven't seen in years heard about my situation through a mutual friend and offered for us to stay with her family for a while. She's married with 4 kids, and is pregnant with a baby number 5. This friend is an absolute angel. 2 of her kids were adopted from the foster system, and I'm not the first friend she has taken in. Husband is in tech, and my friend is a director at a local private school. They have a big house with a huge playroom and a massive backyard with a play structure and a pool. She had me complete a background check before moving in. We were moved in the end of the week once that cleared. She moved my daughter into her oldest daughter's room. They became immediate best friends. My son got a small room that was previously used for storage, but have been beautifully decorated for him, and I stayed in their guest room. Mhm. Now my son can be extremely defiant. I've tried therapy with me, individual therapy, working with behavioral technicians, and everything else you can think of. He's a great kid, but once he gets home, everything is a power struggle. There can be a lot of arguing, and he can be rough with his sister. My friend talked to me before we moved in about my son. She told me that she wants to help us, but if the situation starts to become harmful to her kids, she will have to kick us out. He did great for a couple of weeks. Then he started to test boundaries. He was pushing, then he started teasing his sister and my friend's oldest daughter. We were given our only warning. I talked to my son and tried punishment again. Then he went back to messing with the girls. I was told that they are willing to keep my daughter until we get settled up, but my son and I needed to be out that night. They got us a hotel for the week, and then we were on our own. We bounced between hotels, motels for a few weeks, and now we're in a 2 bedroom apartment that almost definitely has small problems while I'm applying to a different income restricted apartments. I've decided to keep my daughter with them until we are somewhere with a little more space and it is slightly better condition. I visit without my son a couple times a week and we spend weekends together. The other day, my son was mad at me and said I favor his sister because I'm letting her stay at a good house while he has to live here. I was just done with his defiance and told him that the reason she gets to stay there and he doesn't because his behavior got us kicked out. He chose to ignore us when we talked to him and punish him for repeatedly taking good from the girls, shooting them with the Nerf guns, etc. So now he has to deal with the consequences. He has been upset since then, and I'm wondering if I shouldn't have told him why he had to leave. I honestly think that you're not the asshole because this is just a sad situation all around. And honestly, I don't think you are wrong for telling him the truth. He's a 10-year-old, not a 4-year-old. He's old enough to understand that the actions have consequences, especially after being warned multiple times. From what you wrote, your friend gave you every opportunity to make it work. She opened her home to you, gave you a family, a place to stay, and even warned you that if your son's behavior started affecting her own kids, you'd have to leave. That's a completely reasonable boundary. The part that really gets me is that she didn't even abandon your family. She offered you to keep your daughter because she was behaving well, paid up for the hotel you moved to, and did far more than most people ever would. At the same time, I do feel bad for your son. He's clearly dealing with something bigger than just being difficult. Kids usually don't act like this for no reason, and it sounds like he's struggling with ways that aren't easy to fix. Also, hearing that his own behavior is the reason he lost a safe, comfortable home probably hurt a lot. But lying to him wouldn't have helped either. If you had made up another reason, he would have never connected his actions to the outcome. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's also how kids learn accountability. I just really hope that he gets the support he needs before this turns into something even harder to deal with as he gets older. Am I the asshole for demanding my 11,000 back from my parents after they stole my future? Okay, that sounds interesting.
I, 23 female, married to my husband, 25 male. And we have a beautiful little girl who turns 1 next month. We're finally in a position where we are looking to buy our first home. The problem is, every time I look at our savings, all I can think about is the $11,000 my parents took from me. When I was 18, I got my first full time job. Instead of celebrating my independence, my parents took every single paycheck. By the time I was 20, they had taken around $11,000 from me, leaving with almost nothing. I was told I was helping family. The money wasn't for the bills, it was because we were struggling. It was to buy my uncle a house. My uncle has a gambling addiction, 2 children, and a disabled wife. I have absolutely nothing against my aunt. She's one of the kindest people I know, but I couldn't understand why an 18-year-old girl, that was me, was expected to financially support the entire family. And it even gets worse. My parents wanted the mortgage to be in my name at 18 years old. They expected me to take on the legal responsibility for a house that wasn't even for me. If I'd agree, I could have affected my ability to buy my own first home one day. Thankfully, my boyfriend at the time pointed out how dangerous that would be. That was the first crack in everything I'd been taught to believe. Then my parents found out I have a boyfriend. Instead of talking to me, they had another family member tell me I was adopted. Not my parents, not in private, just someone else. And suddenly, my entire childhood made sense. Growing up, I was treated like the family servant. I cooked, I cleaned, I did whatever they wanted while everyone else got to be a children. If I was at work and they wanted me home, they actually called my workplace because a manager knew my mom. She'd send me home without question. If I ever stood up for myself, my parents would tell everyone how lazy and ungrateful I was. What they never told anyone was they controlled me financially, manipulated me emotionally, and physically abused me behind the closed doors. Eventually, I refused to let them put the mortgage in my name. I had 3 months before I left for university. Those 3 months were absolute hell. Every single day, I was reminded how selfish I was, how ungrateful I was, how they'd done everything for me. When I finally moved to the university, I went low contact. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. It lasted about 6 months. Then one day, my parents showed up at my university accommodation without warning. They stood outside and yelled at me, demanding I buy my uncle the house. When I refused, they threatened me with the same thing they threatened me for years. If you don't do this, you're not getting our house or the land in India. Here's the thing, I never wanted it. I told them over and over that it was their property and they could leave it to whoever they just wanted. I just wanted them to stop using it to control me. After that, I told accommodation security they would never let to my parents into the building again. I cut contact. About a year later, I met a man who is now my husband. He believed people could change. He encouraged me to give my parents one last chance. Against my better judgment, I did. After university, I moved back in with them. Within days, they announced they were moving to the house they bought from my uncle. I finally asked what had happened with my 11,000. They didn't deny it. They openly admitted they used my money to help to buy the house. Then they looked me in the eye and told me that if I want to keep living with them, I also have to help pay the mortgage because my uncle didn't have a job. That was it. I packed everything I owned and left. I had nowhere to go. The only place I could afford at such short notice was a room in a shared house full of men. I felt uncomfortable every single day, but it was still safer than staying with my parents. Eventually, my husband and I saved enough to rent our own home. 2 years later, we welcomed our daughter. She is the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, we're trying to buy our first house together. And every time I see how much deposit we still need, I think about those 2 years of wages that were taken away from me. If I'd been allowed to keep the money I earned, we'd probably already own our home. I've stayed no contact ever since. I've spoken to a lawyer. I have years of bank statements. I even have bank security footage showing my mom pressuring me to transfer the money because I insisted on going to the bank instead of doing it online. Apparently, I have a very strong legal case, but I don't want to spend years in court. I don't want the stress. Most importantly, I don't want these people anywhere near my daughter. I refuse to let her grow up believing that the love means fear, guilt, or financial control. So I'm sending one final message with my bank details saying, transfer the 11,000 you took from me into this account. I don't want a conversation, I just want my money back. My husband supports whatever decision I make. Some people have told me to just forget the money and move on. Others say I owed every dollar. So, am I the asshole for asking my parents to give me back my 11,000 they took from me all those years ago? Okay, she's not even close the asshole in this situation, because it honestly isn't really about the 11,000 anymore. Uh, it's about years of financial abuse, manipulation, and control. Your parents didn't borrow the money, they took it from you. Then they tried to convince you to put a mortgage in your own name for someone else's house? That's insane. The fact that they kept using inheritance as leverage just shows that they never stopped trying to control you, and then when it didn't work, they expected you to help pay the mortgage for the same house they bought you with your money. That is unbelievable for me. And also, going no contact was one of the healthiest decisions you ever made. Uh, Reading everything you've been through, it's pretty clear your daughter is growing up in a much safer and healthier environment than you ever had. As for the money, I don't think you're wrong for wanting it back. It's your money. They admitted they took it, and from what you said, you even have evidence to support it. That being said, I think carefully before sending the message. If your goal is closure, there is a good chance they won't pay voluntarily, and reaching out could just reopen a chapter you worked so hard to close. And if your goal is actually getting the money back, then I'd skip the emotional message entirely and let the lawyer handle it. Either way, you're absolutely not the asshole. You don't owe your parents forgiveness, contact, or another chance. Your only responsibility now is protecting the family you've built, and from everything you've written, that's exactly what you're doing.
And that's gonna do it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments whose side you were on and whether you agreed with the Reddit verdicts or not. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more Reddit stories while we keep building. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you later in the next one. Peace.